Welcome to the LEAFMAN Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Taylor. This is my co-host,
Brooks Porter.
And today, we have a very special pipe hitter guest for you.
Pipe hitter's my word, bro.
I'm sorry. This is Todd Nielsen, and he's going to tell us about himself. We're going to have some good interviewing questions and kind of just
riff.
Riff and raff and banter. Brooks, why don't you kind of start us off?
Well, I was just going to say, tell the people who you are. Little brief history. We'll get into.
Yeah.
We'll get into more.
We'll get into some meat and potatoes. But the short story is, I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. I live in Utah now, but I was a cop in California in San Jose, California, for 25 years. I did narcotics, prostitution, fugitive apprehension, and human trafficking. Did all kinds of other special operation. I mean, you guys understand. There's so many little details.
I read up on you.
Yeah, there's so many little details that it's just like, okay, what do we cover?
Yeah, what do we talk about?
Yeah, so it's just like, holy crap. I've been blessed to have a very, very fortunate life.
Yeah.
There were times where I didn't think it was so fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that one.
But, and it's just like, now looking back on everything, it's like, I wouldn't trade any of it.
Yeah.
Not a single bit of it.
Nope.
It's kind of cool when being the age that I am and being able to take the time to look back on things and just go, that really sucked.
Yeah.
But
made you who you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I wouldn't change it for anything.
It all goes into like the embrace the suck attitude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, being infantry, that was the motto.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes when you're in those moments of like high pace op tempo, you're like, this is my nightmare. I will never get out of this. And then when you get out of it, and a couple years down the road, you're like, man, I'm so much better for those moments.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like those relate, because you're a business owner now. I feel like those hardships, they even come as far as, that's what you need to do to be a good entrepreneur. Like, that's how I feel. A couple months ago, I think you and I kind of talked about it too. But winter was really hard for us.
Yeah.
And the way that I got through is I just told myself, no good business owner did not go through the exact same thing that I'm going through right now.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just hard and it sucks, but you can't become the person that you need to become if you don't go through those trials.
Yeah.
So it's.
And what kind of story is that? It's like, yeah, dude, I started a business, everything went smooth. I made $1 million. It was great.
Yeah.
Whose story is that?
It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way.
No.
It's funny because like I mentor a lot of different people in different types of groups and scenarios and stuff. And it's funny, I always tell them, I'm like, look, coal doesn't turn into a diamond without pressure.
Right.
And that's just a reality.
Yeah.
You can't grow without that pressure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mentioned on this podcast before, like, and you've had your things too. I always said, I have people that are like, I had a pretty physically abusive childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's like, man, I wish I could have just gone back and taken that all away from you. I wouldn't.
No.
Probably came back from my Iraq alive because of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's those moments like that.
Yeah.
Not to like jump back all over the Iraq thing, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Well, because what that does is it actually kind of forges you to develop your perseverance and your determination to push through those hard things and just go, okay, I've been through that. This is nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's going to suck, but
yeah, it's hot outside, but
yeah, I can deal with this part. I mean, that's nothing.
I had an employee, and this was on the podcast a couple months back too. I had an employee, really, really good kid, and he asked a question. He said, you're a very optimistic person. How do you become optimistic? And my answer was almost identical to that. I was like, you just do a series of difficult things over and over and over again. Yeah. And once you go through all of those things, it's easy to look at the next thing and be like, well, I did the last 12 things. There's no reason for me to believe that.
You go through a long period of not optimism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's such the truth.
Yeah. Speaking of pressure, when you were back doing all those things, like what was the highest pressure field that you operated in?
And I have a guess as to what it might have been.
I'll tell you, and then I want to know your guess.
Okay.
Let's see, 2003. I was in Idaho actually visiting my dad, and I wake up and my pager.
Yeah.
Back in the day, kind of dating
What's
myself.
That?
Yeah. Look it up. Google it. Somebody will tell you.
I've seen one. It's fine.
Pagers going berserk and everything else. So I call up my sergeant. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Oh, we had an officer killed last night. Okay, I'll be on my way. Head home. Drop my dog off to my neighbor and go, I don't know when I'm going to be back.
Yeah.
And
It's the game.
And he goes, no problem. Take care of what you got to take care of. And then for 12 days, we hunted the guy that killed Jeffrey Fontana. And it's funny because we were a brand new unit that we kind of merged 2 units together, and there was so much infighting.
Yeah.
Right. Who carries the biggest stick?
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of?
yeah,
Who
exactly.
gets,
Every
who
day
gets
was
to go.
Yeah, every day was a pissing contest. And then finally, this one event just kind of changed it for everybody. So 12 days straight, literally hitting 4 to 5 houses every single day, and looking for a cop killer. So it's either we're going to get into a shootout or...
Yeah.
And that's a lot of days. That's a lot of days to just be on high frequency.
Yeah.
It's a long time, and it definitely puts weight on you.
Yeah, it was super, super intense. Like when we finally got his killer in custody, I was driving home. It's about, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I literally blew past a marked unit, supervisor of all. Like smoked by him, didn't even see him.
Yeah.
He pulls me over in my undercover ride, and he's like, looks in and goes, oh, hey, Todd, you guys got him. I'm like, yeah, we got him. He goes, you know you're doing 75? No. I didn't even see you, Sarge.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks
Did it
for
look
letting me know.
So it's like
Yeah.
that tempo of go, and then finally when it's off, it's just like nothing. Nothing else matters in your world.
Do you think that like during that period of time, it was because you did narcotics, trafficking, undercover, like
CIT.
yeah. Like what was like that was like one scenario. What was like overall the most stressful on your life? Like which calling that you were performing was like the most stressful? Was
Like
it
which team? Like
undercover?
which team?
Which team that you worked with was like overall over your whole
My
period
guess
of
was
working?
high risk, by the way. High risk warrant.
Yeah.
So it's probably just nonstop.
Yeah, well, because our tempo was so intense. I mean, there were times where we'd finish one op and then go and get briefed for another op.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just crashing door after door after door after door. And I mean, you guys know, you don't know what's on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
And it's just like, okay, it just is what it is. But then it almost got to the point where it's like, if I had like 3 days off, like 3 legitimate days off, because we were supposed to have 3 days off, but it never worked out that way.
You almost don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
That emptiness.
Yeah. It's like, come on, I need some.
I need the good stuff.
I hear you. Like, I mean, my only background with training, as far as everything goes, is that I did a 9-week stint as a CQB instructor in a shoot house.
Yeah.
With a team leader of mine, or with a squad leader of mine.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a detail that we got assigned to.
Uh-huh.
And I loved it because before I did that, with CQB and house-to-house operations, I was like, this is chaos, and I don't thrive well in chaos. Like Trevor does well in chaos. We're very different. I'm like very operation mode. Like if I know what I'm doing, I can crush it, but I don't operate super well in chaos. So after seeing all of that and getting so much better, I was like, man, I would train forever if I wanted to be 10 times better at this.
Oh yeah.
Training makes you way better than anything than anything.
You know what's so interesting is you have like these like from civilian eyes, these like high risk, high like action hero jobs, right?
Yeah.
You know? And same thing with, like when I tell people that Brooks and I, when we first got to Fort Hood, our first duty station, we got pulled to be the personal security detachment for the sergeant major and colonel. And
I
everyone's
didn't
like,
know you were at Hood.
Oh yeah, both of us.
What year?
The great place.
2009 to 2013. Yeah.
Were you there for the incident?
I would right after.
Right after.
Right after.
Right after.
Right, like weeks after. Like we were in the field. I was in the field, and we were both in the field. And I think they were talking about it. They were like, "Oh, the unit that was on QRF when that happened, like base QRF, they were in the field too." So they were like, "Be ready."
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was fresh.
Yeah.
Dude, I was in Tampa teaching the SOCOM unit on that day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Command Sergeant Major comes up and he's like, stop training for a second. I'm like,
Yep.
dude,
Yeah.
you're in charge, bro. You whatever you want. He briefs us on it. I'm like,
very base rundown for anyone that
Yeah.
doesn't know. It was an active shooter that was wild on Fort Hood, and it was just uncalled. Like no one saw anything like it coming. And it was Army personnel. It was just
there was times after that for the next 4 years, at least while I was there, where if there was even a threat of a firearm or anything like that, they shut the whole base down.
Yeah.
Like nobody's coming in, nobody's going out.
yeah.
when now his roommate pulled a 9mm out from under his desk in our barracks complex.
Yeah.
Nothing happened for 5 days.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
It was
they were
wild.
serious.
They locked it down.
Yeah. But so I was saying, like, you get these like civilian jobs where it's like everyone's like looking to you like you're a hero and you have like these things and it sounds like the coolest thing in the world, and it is. But that's like
the cool factors about this.
5%.
Then there's the exhausted factor.
You're tired all the time. You never get any sleep. You're walking periodically for days on end. Like paperwork. People are always like, "How was it?" You're like, "Oh man, I got in firefights like every day. I'm basically like the John Wayne of this unit." You know? No, what do you think it was like? That happened very rarely, and I did like the boring stuff most of the time.
Yeah.
But how that at least was my experience in the military. I imagine you saw. I mean, you did a 25-year career with that, so like you saw a lot more than us. But like, how would you say that most? You're also in Los Angeles, so
San Jose.
Oh, San Jose.
Yeah.
That's right, San Jose.
Same smell, just smaller.
Same smell, better traffic.
So would you say San Jose is still like a city? Like, would you say that like, on average, cities that size are like, at least in units that you were in, was it like, as like once a week, more periodic than that you were like hand to your firearm, or was it like once a year, once a month? Like how often were people, at least in your area? Like,
I can legitimately count on one hand
the amount of times
amount of times that I did not point a gun at somebody.
Right. Yeah.
Or the amount of day that I actually made it through an actual day of not pointing a gun at somebody.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is
insane.
So,
I've driven through San Jose, I believe it.
Yeah.
But so I actually had come up with this question just because I was curious, because I love the whole training aspect of everything, and especially having done that little stint as a trainer.
Yeah.
But that's all I did. So with you, how is it moving from like almost unit to unit? If I can say it better, like you're training, it's easy to train CQB.
Yeah.
It's all the basics.
Yeah.
Slow, smooth, fast, and then everything after that.
Yeah.
But you're going from training police units. You're training Secret Service units. You're going from offense to defense, and then you're going to JSOC, which is then you got Geneva Convention that you're working in a different. How do you prepare or handle, like, is it chaotic, or is it just kind of a basics rule all throughout?
It's more of, especially in the CQB world, it's just like, and it's funny because having the luxury of training with different SWAT teams and different special operations teams within the police world across the United States, and then doing stuff with some military people too, all of a sudden it started going, we're all doing the same crap.
Really?
We're just calling it something different.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the verbiage that we would use to talk about something, or the way that a unit SOP. And it's funny how when you get into like unit tactics, like if you get like a 50-man unit, and then each team inside that has some little nuance, it's just a little tiny bit different.
Yeah.
And
CQB operations are in itself nuance.
Yeah. And every team has their own special little thing that they're better at, you know. On the military side, some are better at doing like mud huts and stuff. Others are better at doing multi-story buildings, you know, and it just kind of depends on what is needed to be done. And you kind of look at, okay, what's the total breakdown? How do I break this down into the most elemental piece, or the most smallest piece of the puzzle? It's like, get in the room, secure a sector.
Yeah. That's exactly a good way to put it. Yeah, get in.
And you've got, and exactly, you're pointing out, and it's so small, those nuances between each team, because like you've got, what's an example? Like SEALs go top down.
Yeah.
And most Army units will go bottom up.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I just think it's because SEALs are better trained. Because they trust themselves to come top down, like next to their buddy's head, you know what I mean?
Well,
more so than an infantry unit like me and Trevor, who probably do a quarter of the room time that those guys are doing,
Well, and it's
Probably
funny, in looking at that specifically, you got to look at what regions are they training in, what's their training environment that they're in.
Yeah.
Is it something where they have a multi-story, or do they have a single story? Is it they have catwalks, or is it instructors are walking on the ground behind the team? Because that's going to determine directions of muzzles and everything else. I'm like,
that's at least at Benning, that was one of the reasons that regular infantry always goes down to up, because they have catwalks and no instructors up there. Like, that guy's been holding the gun for less than a month. There's no way I'm standing up.
Absolutely not. And it just comes down to, you never know until you know. I mean, I was doing room clearing, and we had this is that crazy sergeant major that I told you about that I had at NTC in Quarter One. He was like an ex-Delta Teams guy. And then he was just some sergeant major. But he was the one, like, we rolled in, he was teaching us real hardcore CQB. And he was like, watch, I'll lead the team. And he runs in, and as he sweeps, he like switches his hand and like locks the closet door. And then he stops us. And I was like, gonna clear the closet? And he was like, no, locked it. Like, cause he locked it because it's safer to lock it than clear it by yourself. I was like, I would have never known.
Interesting stuff.
It's stuff that you don't know. It's just small stuff like that. I mean, that translates to anything. Like, someone will give you one bit of advice and it'll change your business.
Well, and especially in the CQB world, a minor little thing like that buys you 10, 15 seconds.
Exactly.
10, 15 seconds. You guys know, inside a building, dude, 15 seconds is an eternity.
That's a long time.
Especially when a lot of the houses that we were hitting, we kind of used it as a general rule, 1,800 square feet, we were going to have that secured in 22 seconds.
That's
the thing. But you get into a flow state once you're good at something. I mean, I feel like there's two different types of flow states. The one that, like, the flow state where you zone out, like, I hit a flow state when I'm running, like 5 minutes into a run, I'm just, but when, like, we're clearing rooms and you've done the same room 5
you
times,
see everything all the way out here.
It's more of a hyper-aware, locked-in kind of flow state. You know what I mean? So
I watched so many videos on it too, like so many different ways. Like, the way that we were trained was, you're usually like a 4 to 5 man team, and the back guy, you stack on the door, and then the back guy comes up, kicks it open, and then the lead guy goes in, and then the back guy falls back into the back of the line. But I've seen lots of people do it a ton of different ways.
And all work. Just depending on what you practice, I feel like. And going along with, so just to, like, jump around with the op tempo thing that we're talking about, you go into all these high op tempo situations, then you're training high op tempo units. And which puts you into that high pace, that fast paced life. How was transitioning from that to having a bit kind of a business? I mean, I know you're still shooting, you're still running around, but how did that translate to being like, okay, I'm gonna have to sit down for about 6 to 8 months now and be slow and figure this out? Or was that what it was like?
The transition from going from my forced retirement to quote unquote civilian life sucked. It absolutely sucked, and we can dive into that in a little bit. But the realities of having been in that type of op tempo all the time, it's like I'm like Trevor. I thrive in chaos. The crazier it is, it's like the calmer I seem to get. My blood pressure goes down, my heart rate goes down. It's like
if everyone else needs me to be more controlled, I will be more controlled. But as soon as everyone else starts to get controlled, I start to get antsy. Because I'm like, I'm bored.
I always.
If I don't get to wreck something in the next 10 minutes,
I totally get you. And it's not like I'm not like totally useless in chaos. I can adapt and stuff like that. But my thing is rehearsal. I was always that way, and it was like the dumbest thing I ever said in the military was a shoot house operator. The first time I went to a shoot house, they were like, there are guys that do this, like, they practice for missions and they build out exactly what they expect. And they practice on that for over and over and over again. I was like, oh, I'd be way good at that. Like, I'm good at preparation and rehearsal. So, but I think about back in, like, the house to house days in Iraq when they were just like, what city are we going to today? I would have been like, whoa. So it's kind of a cool dichotomy. Me and Trevor were always that way. So we kind of balance each other out. Luckily, we're on the same team. But
dude, and literally you need both sides of that. You need operators that thrive in that chaos and violence, and then you need operators that are just like okay, this isn't how we trained it, but I can adapt to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
and then when that chaos has been handled with violence of action or whatever,
Yeah.
then is the moment for that preparation, that rehearsed response.
Yeah.
Once that firefight ends and room clear,
Right,
room
what's
clear.
the-
Yeah.
what's
What
the-
now?
What's
Yeah.
the process
And then
afterwards?
that's what you got.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
they
that's-
balance each other out.
A lot of time, that's how I relied on my ATLs. It's like, okay,
What now, dude?
we got everything secured. Now what?
Yeah. You got the rest of
and
this,
that's
I'm
very
gonna
much how I
sit
was.
in front.
That's
Yeah.
very much how I was.
Yeah.
You're like the ATL, you know.
Yeah.
So you did 25 years basically in San Jose.
Yep.
Then forced retirement because I'll just let you tell people why you did forced retirement.
So what ultimately retired me is I lost the use of these 3 fingers in a fight. I tore the tendons almost completely. At worst, it got this hand, and you can still see it still shakes.
Yeah.
When you come out.
Yeah, when I hold my hand out,
Yeah.
or if I if I just hold my hand, you can see that it shakes.
Yeah.
But I lost the use of these 3 fingers in a fight with an armed robbery suspect, and my department totally took care of me.
Yeah.
They kind of said, okay, do what you're doing. We're going to kind of move you over here.
Mhm.
Based on your background, your training, your experience, we can use you over in this situation here. So they kind of hid me for more than what was supposed to be my year.
Yeah.
And dude, it's still doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just I had a freaking team of 10 meat eaters with me that
Yeah.
could solve problems.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, but then ultimately they're literally, I timed it. It was 38 seconds of sitting down with the doc. The doc looks at me and he goes, no, your career's over.
Dang.
38 seconds.
They're always so soft with it.
I
too, huh?
know.
They always deliver it so well.
Oh yeah. And literally I walked out of there like, holy crap. I called my wife. I go, he says that they're going to retire me. And I'm like, okay, now what do we do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was April 28th, 2015.
Yeah.
August 5th, 2015, I was done.
Yeah.
Turn in your stuff and be done with it. The only formal thing I had to do after that was sit in front of the retirement board.
How long is it normal? Like in the military, 20 years is considered a full contract, and then beyond that, like if you're high enough ranking and you're in sergeant major roles, they can go up to like 28, 30,
Yeah.
or something like that. But normally 20 years, if you're like still staff sergeant, they'll just retire you. What's like for normal police units, what's like a normal like career length?
It's anywhere from 20 to 30.
Mhm.
So I kind of hit the middle of it. The bad part was I had a canine spot all lined up for me.
Mhm.
I was literally looking at, okay, well, I don't like that dog. I don't like the personality of that dog.
So you have like the next
Yeah,
thing lined up.
that's how I was going to sunset my career. I was going to go out as a canine handler, do 7 years there. They already said, hey, do your first year as a handler, and then you can become a team leader and everything else.
Yeah.
And just
Would
kind of,
that have been a new medium for you?
yeah.
Really?
And that's exactly how I wanted to finish my career.
That's fair.
And it was like, okay, because then you kind of get a chance to kind of slow it down a little bit. The dog does all the work.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of work with the training and everything else, which that was right up my alley anyway. So
Yeah.
it was nice. But I'll tell you what, and sitting there going, holy crap, now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
That was 4 months later,
Yeah.
April to August.
Yeah.
So like 4 months.
4 months. And then we'd already talked about, because we were planning at least 5 years. If the dog was able to make it to 7, we were going to go another 7.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't happen. So we had already planned that we were moving out of state because California is just so dang expensive.
Yeah.
And then here's the other part that most people don't talk about with forced retirements is you lose half of your retirement.
Really?
Yeah. So I only have a 50% retirement.
I didn't know that.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
crazy.
That's wild that it works that way.
Yeah. It's a disability retirement, so it's non-taxed,
Right.
But still,
you got to live off of that.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
You would
yeah.
think that because it's a forced retirement from an injury sustained while on the job, that it
Yeah.
would be like an actual retirement.
Yeah.
Or even better.
Yeah, or better.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's
well,
a
and-
disability or something.
You know,
Yeah.
so now that I've been retired now for coming up on 8 years, I've caught up to where I should have been when I initially retired with my cost of living allowances and everything that we were in our contract. But it's still just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That freaking stung, and then the other part of it is they don't pay you for a month because they've got to do all the paperwork transition and everything else.
Yeah.
And then you go from biweekly pay to monthly pay.
Yeah.
And I'm
so
like,
do they give you like, when that happens, and if we're stepping into territory you're not comfortable talking about, just let us know.
we're good.
When that happens, do they give you like if you have like a 401k or something or anything like that with the state, do they give you all that in your forced retirement and say like, here's a lump sum, or is it like, here's a month off, here's your retirement pay?
Yeah.
Nothing like.
So I was smart. I actually we had what we call deferred compensation instead of the 401k,
Okay.
which actually ended up paying for my house.
That's awesome.
So that part worked out really well. Another part is we have what we call the 420 club. If you have 420 hours of compensated overtime on the books that you haven't been compensated for, they have to pay you out for it.
Right.
And I was constantly right at 420. So I was constantly getting my overtime pay all the time. But when I retired, I had 420 hours of comp time on the books that they had to pay me out for.
That's
So that helped for the move.
That got you through that little in-betweener.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I didn't see that for another 6 months.
Oh, dang.
So, but I mean, ultimately, when it finally came in, I was able to balance everything out. It was just, hey, bro, I can't pay you right now, but
Yeah. Everyone's been in that boat.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happened? So how
I've told
long?
so many people that I can't pay them right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So how far after August, when you retired, how long between there and getting to Utah and this house?
So September 23rd or September 19th, we decided we were going to move.
Quick, like a month later.
Oh, no. We had no idea. We were looking at Nevada. We were looking at Texas because I like the gun laws in Texas.
Yep, they're great.
And then we were looking at Idaho. We were looking some maybe even up north in Washington or something like that, just so that we could get land, maybe Montana.
Yeah.
But then we started looking, well, we don't have any family or anything in the area. And, having that family and everything around, especially in the way that things were going for us, it was going to be some difficult times for about 6 months. So we're like, it'd be good to have the family around. And literally, we started going, Utah's probably not a good, or Idaho's not a good spot just because it's not the right mix. Then Nevada's not the right mix because then I'm right back with all the criminal element and everything else that I'm trying to get away from.
Right.
So then,
big city, want to help.
Yeah, exactly.
Want to like be a consultant.
Yeah, exactly.
Force yourself out of retirement.
Yeah. So then, literally, we go to sleep after kind of chatting about it, and then wake up the next morning, and I look over at my wife and I go, "Hey, I think I got an idea." And she goes, "Well, I think I got one too." And I go, "Say yours." And she goes, "Utah." I'm like, "I like Utah," and that's exactly what we were talking about, or what I was thinking. And so, literally, we made that decision on the 23rd of September, and November 23rd, we were here.
That's crazy. So all within a year, you went from being fine.
I went from the top of my freaking world to
living in Utah.
Apex of your career.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you get to Utah. How long after you get here do you start Nielsen Tactical?
Well, Nielsen Training, it existed, but it was Nielsen Training Associates, and surprising how much better Utah is for small business than California.
Yeah, you would never.
It is weird.
Oh yeah,
I thought they'd be the best.
Yeah.
They hate corporate interests.
Literally, when I sat down with the accountant to close out 2015, he goes, "Well, now that you're living in Utah, you might want to think about moving to Utah and incorporating." I'm like, "Wait, we talked about doing this one. Oh, wait, I am retired."
Yeah.
So we kind
I
of
wasn't going to do that till now.
I guess now, huh? Yeah. And literally, we started looking at it, and I was going to save right in the neighborhood of about $15,000 just by incorporating everything else. So then Nielsen Training and Consulting was morphed from Nielsen Training Associates.
Gotcha. And you've been running that ever since?
I've been running that ever since. And dude, it's been like light my hair on fire, go Mach 12. It's like being back on the teams again.
Yeah.
Seems like being in Utah too, you got a large family in the tactical community.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, even looking just at your website, at your partners and stuff like that. And I know, like, looking around BPMF, Ready Gunner, and there's all these tactical, it's like one big tactical family.
Yeah.
More than I would have thought for Utah.
Well, it's funny because that's what I figured, oh, great, I'm moving into a freaking black hole of training.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the training that I'm doing a lot of stuff for. It's more the consulting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of consulting stuff that I've done in the last 2 years has just been off the hook. Just
nonstop.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, looking at, you know, designing different weapon systems, putting this little widget on this particular gun, or adding this little widget to a piece of apparel, or adding this, changing this stitching to this.
Oh, it's a tiny change that will make all the world in something, you know?
Yeah. If somebody goes back and researches me, I mean, I did a thing with First Tactical, helping them design a pair of pants, their very first pair of pants.
That's awesome.
And literally we're sitting in the product development meeting and I go, can you move that opening of the pocket just over like this much? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, why? Because at the time, everybody's wearing drop leg holsters with a big old strap on it. And we couldn't access our pockets.
That makes sense.
And they're like, huh, we never thought about that.
Yeah. It's the field,
big old cargo pocket for no reason.
Yeah.
Field knowledge meets design, right? So like, here's the practical use. Like, design's great. This is not going to work because of all these external circumstances that you could only know if you were in the field.
Try to use it.
Yeah. You know, and it's little tiny things like that. It's like, holy crap, I had an effect on that.
Yeah.
You know,
that's awesome.
And it's also incorporating things that are just like, probably a million people were like, man, I wish this wasn't like this.
Yeah.
And then it's just someone taking the
initiative to go, hey, we need to change this.
Yeah. You know, I had a buddy that he's with 10th Group in Okinawa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and his platoon captain said that back in like 10, 15 years ago, first time he went like plain clothes and he threw on like a jacket. And he was like, oh, is there Kevlar in this? He was like, I think I had the first jacket, like plain clothes jacket that ever had Kevlar sewn into it. He was like, I thought they just existed, but apparently I had the first one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dude, it's crazy
Stuff you wouldn't think of.
Yeah. And the amount of things just on the armor side, things that I've consulted on behind the scenes that people
really,
you know, like, oh, that's the coolest thing. Yeah, well, check out this stitch here, this here, and move this here, and look at this here. And they're like, how'd you know that?
Yeah. I got experience.
You should have talked to the Army. You should have talked to the Army right before we deployed, before we had to wear those OTVs.
Yeah, that was
about the most useless piece of body armor in the world.
So here's a question for you. I feel like this is I feel like I think about this one pretty regularly.
Okay.
I think you'll get a good thought going from it.
Okay.
I even if I don't super love the government.
Yeah.
I still think
the government's been very good to me. Let's just put it that way.
I still super proud of my service.
Oh,
like I still carry that badge of honor with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
I think about whether or not I'm prouder of my service or my business, because they both took things from me in separate ways, in different ways. As a business owner, which one do you feel like you're more proud of? Like building this thing that you've built, or your time in service?
You know, it's funny because it's like your kids.
Yeah. You
know, it's like which one do you look at? I am so fortunate to have the career that I had. You know, as quickly as it ended and how deliberately it ended. You know, it sucks. But looking back and having the ability to sit there and go, wow, I did that. I had effect on this person's life, this person's life, this person's life, this person's career. Absolutely. You know, and it's funny because like I got a call from an old recruit. He's only in my car for 3 months. Yeah. And literally he was with San Jose for 2 years and then went to another agency, got involved in all kinds of stuff. They ended up calling him Dr. Death and everything else. He called me up and he's like, hey, bro, going through this is what's going on. I'm like, hey, you know, it's okay. This is what we need to work on. We kind of worked our way through all that and everything. And then he goes, you know, everything that you taught me in that 3 months, I still teach today.
That's awesome.
For sure.
I'm like,
that's
damn.
touching.
Yeah. That's the best feeling. Yeah. Especially like with training, it's just visible impact.
Yeah.
And being able to look back over a career and seeing that's visible impact. I arrested that person, therefore this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and then, now on the business side of things, it's like, I'm sitting in a classroom and I looked over at this gal and I'm just like, something's bothering her.
Mm.
And I'm just going to keep teaching my class.
Mhm.
And finally at the end, I go, let's chat.
Mhm.
And then she just opens up how she's involved in a domestic violence relationship. It's really bad for her and da 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 da. And she goes, I need to go through a bunch of training and everything, but I don't have any money.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
And it's expensive.
yeah, well, it's expensive, and time is money. It's just the reality
what it is.
of everything. I'll tell you what. Here's what we're gonna do. And I came up with just kind of a rough training plan for her to kind of go through and do everything, and then just check in with me and let me know what it is that you're doing, and I'll keep kind of coaching you. And that way, I can still kind of do it for free.
Yeah.
And you know what? You get to do some stuff. She called me up like 7 months later. She's like, hey, that boyfriend, he's been kicked to the curb. All of his stuff is no longer in the house. I now have gotten some self-defense training because I'm afraid of guns. I'm like, be afraid of guns. I'm afraid of guns too.
Yeah.
You should be.
Yeah. And
I'm afraid of one side of every gun that exists.
yeah, exactly. As long as I'm behind it, I'm cool with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny because like when I think about that question, I mean, Brooks and I met in the military.
Mhm.
I would not be friends with him, and here we are, 15 years later.
First guard shift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our very first guard shift.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
First guard shift
Guard
ever.
shift of everything.
And then I got other friends that work with me at Trico, and I wouldn't have those relationships if it wasn't for the military. And there are those moments with people, and you're super proud of like the sacrifice that you made and the service and the time and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think about that with business and what I have built a business where like there's a lot of that camaraderie. So there's that makes me proud. But also with business, what's different than in the military is that with business, sometimes there is nobody. It's just you and the business.
Yeah.
And so therefore it becomes your friend because you have to make it like it needs to survive.
Yeah.
So you nurture it even when you're pissed off.
Oh
you know?
yeah.
And so that sacrifice is like it's hard. Same thing with the military. Like the sacrifice isn't it's not just that you built friendships. It's also like I sacrificed parts of myself that were like I had to work really hard to recover.
Yeah.
And so that makes you proud.
Oh
And
yeah.
you're like, that was difficult. It goes back to the very first thing we talked about. Those difficult things are what make you proud and give you optimism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one leads into the other, I mean, this is kind of not a tangent, but just kind of maybe a reach, but one leads into the other. Like, for example, we were infantry, we did hard things. We did combat, we did room clearing, we did all that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But did we make the most out of our military experience?
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, to be honest, completely honest, drank too much, partied too hard. We were young kids. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Party so hard. I mean, I would complain. I'm like, we get paid to work out every single day. I'm like, what are we doing running another 10 miles?
Yeah.
And then I feel like once you got out, I mean, I had a moment of being high speed for like, my last 3 years.
Yeah.
Which felt good for me. But I feel like for you, it was a big thing, like, because getting out, you did everything you did what you're supposed to do, and you got out.
Yeah.
But did you maximize your experience? No.
Yeah.
So 5 years after you got out and you realized you wanted to, I feel like you took what you were supposed to do in the military.
Yeah.
And you put it into a business.
Yeah.
I think that's my outside, because you got in way better shape than you ever were in the military.
Yeah.
And you started a business, and that business was not easy for you to start.
No.
You didn't have $1 million in the bank and say, I just want to start a business.
Yeah, no, it was difficult. But yeah,
you threw all your money at improving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure there were times too in your career, and this kind of leads us into a good segue. Like I'm proud of my service, but like you said, there are certain things that I'm not proud of. Like I didn't take advantage.
For sure.
Yeah, like I was getting paid to work out. I would love to get paid to work out now.
Oh yeah.
But back then it was like I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I don't want to run 10 miles, and I'm just cranky and like hungover and stuff.
I did selection prep for 2 months and dropped out, and I will never forgive myself.
Yeah. There's certain things that you like wish you would have done better. And I think a lot of that just comes with like age and maturity. Like back then I was just young and partying with friends and drinking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that for me was like the start of the downfall.
Oh
like,
yeah.
my drinking spiraled.
Yeah.
It was like a spiral downwards that sometimes would take a little slow spot and then just faster and faster,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
Until eventually I hit the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
You got sober enough to take a couple showers.
Yeah.
And then back to the bottle, baby.
Right into the bottle, yeah.
Just enough to rinse off the stink.
Yeah, Brooks actually has been there for, you know, all of my sobriety journey. He was there when I went through withdrawals. He was there, like, just being a friend. And a
Picked him up from the hospital?
Compadre, picked me up from the hospital after my mom took me. Yep. So I know that you kind of are sober.
Yep.
And what led you to, do you think the drinking was kind of fun? Was it coping? And then how did it become bad? And why did you stop?
It started out where it was just fun.
Yeah.
Because
always does.
Let's see, 97-ish, right in there. It was just kind of, I'm hanging out with the boys and we freaking had a great case. Let's go celebrate. We put this person in prison, and, you know, let's go celebrate. And everything just turned into celebrate after celebrate after celebrate.
That's routine.
Yeah. Well, and then as the tempo increases, you're celebrating, and then the tempo increases, and you're celebrating, and you're celebrating, and you're celebrating.
Yeah.
And
you eventually get to a place where it's not
celebration.
Yeah. And it's not maintainable.
No, and like literally, I had. And here's the sad part. We were on a houseboat trip, and my 10-year-old son knew exactly how to make my drink.
Oof, that hurts.
Does that hurt you?
Oh, dude. If my wife would have divorced me at that moment in time, I would have totally understood. Like literally, she goes, "You seriously sent your son in to get you a drink," and he made it perfect.
Part of me wanted to say nice, but then I was like, oof.
Oh no, because he had the mixture of Jack Daniels, the ice, and the little splash of Coke. He had it just right because he's watched me do it so many times.
Yeah, wild.
You know, and it's like,
was that like the reality check? Was that the spot?
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's no longer serving you, right?
No.
Again, I like to say in everyone that we address these, I'm not sober, but I like to address that I've come a long way in my
it's a
moderation.
process, bro.
In my moderation,
it's a
come
process.
a long way, but at a certain point, what I hear most people that get sober that find, you know, that good moment, like it's always just one day I realized why. Like it was no longer serving anything that I did. It didn't make anything better.
Yeah.
Well, and all that was the first kind of wake up call. Yeah. Of this is not doing you any good.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and then after we moved here, it was so weird to go into a social setting and not have a drink in my hand.
I went through that.
Oh, dude,
he did go through that.
Dude, it's so weird, isn't it?
Awkward.
And unfortunately, unless you've been there, you don't know.
Yeah. And now I can go into any social situation. Yeah. It's like, you know what I explained to Brooks? We've talked about this. Yeah, it took years. But like I had to relearn how to be who I am without the drink. Yeah. And like now I just don't care. I'll go into a party, say what's up, talk to everybody, and when I'm done, I'm done. And I go home. Like, but there was a long period where we would go to friends' parties and I would just kind of be like awkwardly in the corner, like.
Well, I mean, and he's in his sobriety journey. He's getting back into church, getting back into the church, and I'm still like, we're still best friends. So I'm still being like, I'm here to support you, but I'm going to a friend's house. Do you want to come? Like, I don't want you sitting here alone.
Yeah.
I don't want you sitting here alone, newly sober, like some nerd, dude. But so like I invited him, and like he was always great about it. He goes, come in, but he'd hit that. I feel like it was like between 25 and 40 minutes every single time. I was like, well, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah. The social barrier was just low because I didn't have that lubricant. You know
yeah. Because then you're right on that cusp of, if I go a freaking hour, I know I'm gonna have another drink.
100%. Yeah.
Yep.
But I the problem with me, is, you know how like we were talking about thriving in the chaos.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm very black and white, and Erica calls me out on that all the time. There's no gray areas. For me. I do not do like that's why for me, even in fitness, like I can't like kind of moderate my eating. I'm either all the way in on a diet or all the way out.
Yep.
Like,
another key difference. I exist in the gray.
Yeah. Which is great with gray. Yeah. But that's why I couldn't do the drinking, because it was either I am getting hammered tonight or I am not drinking. There was no like Like Brooks he would be like, why do you drink those so fast? And I'm like, I don't know. Isn't the goal to get drunk?
Also, just the most absurd decisions. Like,
yeah.
would chug a bottle of vodka and be like, I'm going to call my parents. Don't do that.
Yeah. Just a terrible drunk. But I'm not an
Just
angry
the
drunk.
worst kind of drunk. Not an angry drunk, just a bad decision. Should I call my parents right now? I'm like, no.
Don't do that. Yeah.
You want to talk to them? I'm like, no, I'm drunk too, Trevor.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a wild journey.
Yeah,
Especially living in such close proximity.
So the boat trip happened in California.
Yep.
And then you were still kind of drinking after that. Got to Utah and put it down completely, or like was there like a final straw where you just kind of phased out, or like what was the catalyst or the straw that broke the camel's back?
When I literally I was going back and forth to California at least once a month to do training classes and everything like that. And every time I'd go, I'd be picking up at least a gallon of Jack Daniels.
Oh yeah, right.
Because it's so much cheaper there than it is here.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know I'm admitting on that I was bootlegging, but whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We all do it.
Yeah.
They're not coming after us.
And then it's the big wake up call for me was literally when I opened up the trunk and I had 4-gallon bottles of Jack Daniels in there.
Yeah.
And that was only going to last me a month.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
okay,
this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
This is me.
And then I still have a fairly decent Scotch collection. Most of it I've given away. But literally when at my retirement party, the amount of booze that was given to me could cover this table.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that's what everybody thinks of you, that just to buy you a bottle of booze.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, we need to start doing something different. And then meeting a few people that didn't drink at all, living here at what I call Mormon Mecca.
Yep.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Nope, that's correct.
It's just like, okay, what's actually going on?
Yeah.
And then when I started kind of looking at things and going, you're doing this to hide from everything that you've gone through in your life. So either you deal with it or this is going to get worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was divine intervention or if that was just my conscience finally getting to me or just I had enough or what. You can call it whatever you want. Yeah. I call it divine intervention, but it finally I just said to myself, stop lying to yourself.
Yeah. So you just put it down.
Yeah. And was it November 26th, 2016 was the day I got baptized. November 25th, 2016 was the last time I had a drink.
Nice. Good for you.
So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, and coming from going through all that, I didn't have any DTs, no delirium tremors, no withdrawals, anything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I
had all of those.
Well, I've been with friends that have gone through that and everything else, and I tell you what, I was like terrified that that's what I was going to go through that, and none of it happened.
That's amazing. What a blessing.
Oh,
that's the divine intervention, right? There.
Well, 100%, 100% it is, because literally I took my time to just say my prayer. I'm going to need your help because I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
And I knew there was no way I could do that by myself.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I got to change this.
Yeah. That's how it was for me. Yeah. Because I went through withdrawals 3 times.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the third time.
I saw twice.
Yeah. Saw twice. And the third time, I had to go to the hospital and they gave me some medication to get through it and stuff. And then, I same thing. I just broke down and prayed. Hands and knees for me. I was just like, okay, I cannot do this a 4th time.
Yeah.
Please help me. And,
went to church the next day.
Yeah, went to church the next day. And then that ended up leading to the whole business and everything. Yeah, it's been such an enlightening journey for me. And it's not, I don't think that I get so much slack from Christians for saying stuff like this, but I don't necessarily think that that you need to follow the word of wisdom to be a good person.
No.
And you know what the word of wisdom is?
Of course, I know what the word. I was baptized. I just got asked to leave. I was asked to leave after I missed 18 out of 19 seminary classes.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I do know what you mean. It goes back to our talk where I always taught. My big fight with the church and religion was always, I feel like they're members of my family. My dad is one of the best people that I know. However, doesn't do any of the word of wisdom stuff.
Yeah.
But like part of me is like, who's to say he's not going to heaven? That's the best guy I know.
Yeah.
You know, that's where my fight was.
Yeah,
But
and it's not necessarily like the rules and stipulations aren't that you're not going to go to heaven if you don't follow the word of wisdom.
Right.
I just personally think that like I know plenty of people who have wine with Sunday dinners or whatever, and they're great people and it's fine. I just think that it's guidelines because it's so easy for it to get out of hand for so many people.
Yeah.
Especially when you are a black and white personality like you are.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people like me.
There is no glass of wine on Sunday dinner for you.
No.
Nope, it doesn't stick. So,
After so many tries.
Yeah.
We tried the moderation thing.
tried the moderation thing, didn't work.
Couple days.
Couple days. We're just gonna drink on weekends. 1 week later, every single
Good
night.
night.
Hey, I am down from 15 beers a night every night since 2009
Yep.
to about 6 to 10 max 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I cannot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a long journey to both.
Well, and as both of you know, that hangover,
Oh man.
dude, you just feel like a freaking zombie.
Zombie.
Yeah.
And then it's like, just hair of the dog.
Yep. Hair of the dog.
Dude, when I went to work on a Monday not hungover one time, I was like, I'm so good at this.
Yeah. Dude, it's a
Good at
crazy
this job.
Yeah. I'm curious for me. I feel like when I got sober, I started finding myself again, and it's weird. Like, like I thought I was extroverted my whole life because I was a drinker and I always was like at the party. I am not an extrovert. When I stopped drinking, I was like, I started fading into the distance from parties. People were like, "We don't see you anymore," and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, yeah, it's weird. Like my personality changed. Yeah,
dramatically,
a lot.
It's funny because like even my son when he went on his mission to Kentucky, he told me I go, so tell me what Louisville's like and all that stuff. He's like, Dad, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get what you mean when you talk about these people that look like zombies and they're walking around because they're so high on drugs all the time and they're just constantly just looking for the next fix and everything else. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the realities are it's the truth. But then when you sit there and go, holy crap, how much of that was I emulating? And him seeing, and now he's like, oh, that was like Dad.
Yeah.
Right. I had grown up here. I've been all over now, thank goodness. But I mean, moving to Burlington, Vermont after the military for me was mind blowing. I had no idea. I thought Burlington was gonna be this nice, charming little town, which it is. It just so happens to be filled with people who are constantly on heroin.
Oh yeah.
And just exactly what you're talking about. Just in the streets, like holding an upside down sign that just says "need money" or whatever. It was so new to me.
Yeah.
So wild to just see. I was like, man, people just committed to desolation.
Yeah.
It's the worst too. I'm better at it now. I'm still not good at it, but I'm better at it than I was. I see people who are like too drunk at parties or like or out in the street. You can tell they're inebriated with the zombie walk, and I get like, when you get like real bad secondhand embarrassment because you're like, oh man,
I've been there.
That guy.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not a good feeling, dude. Like somebody has seen me and probably felt the same way I'm feeling right now.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Not a good feeling. Not a good feeling.
Been there for sure.
So, how was it? As a father and husband, like how did your wife feel about it when you got sober? Like, did she feel like you became a different person? Was it, because sometimes, like I'm not an angry drunk, so people like drunk Trevor.
Yeah.
Like
How was the transition for your wife? Because I know his sobriety for me was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard for a lot of my friends too. From my wife's perspective, a lot of it was, whatever.
Yeah, fair enough.
Didn't think it was going to stick?
Yeah, she didn't think it was going to stick. And, sobriety is a lifelong pursuit. It's not, there's times when, and I'm sure you'll be able to attest to this, there are times it's like, dude, if I have a drink right now, I'd be so much more calm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, let's just stay away from that. And like literally we got into a little bit of a tiff last summer. She's like, why do you still have all these bottles of booze? Because to her, they're just bottles of booze. But to me,
they're just temptation to her.
Yeah, they're just temptation to her. But to me, it's like, well, that friend gave me this because, and we shared this moment together and everything else. And finally she goes, well, then why do we need to keep these around? I go, because every day that I can sit there and look at those and not open them,
feel good.
That's a win for me.
Yeah.
And it's also more of a boost to you, I feel like, than if they weren't there.
Yeah.
And that's you too.
Yeah.
Your thing is that temptation being there and be like, don't need it.
I got a handle on it.
Thanks for the memories, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we were going on a trip a couple years back, and I'm going through the trunk of this car that I drive for when I'm going to drive distances. And I'm going through the spare tire and everything, just checking all that and everything. And I find a fifth Jack in there, and it's about 3/4 full. And I'm like, I completely forgot that was there.
Yep.
Yeah. Opened is worse.
Yeah, exactly. Because
it's already open.
Yeah, you already tapped it. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
You know what?
My DNA is already on the cap.
Oh yeah, exactly. My lips have already been on the top of that thing.
Yeah.
I walked over, I looked at it, I undid the top, looked at it, smelled it, went, yep. Took it right into the garbage can, and I'm like,
See,
I own you.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So let's see. So you said your son went on a mission for the church.
Yep.
How old were they when you moved to Utah? They were kids or?
He was 13.
So
and then my youngest daughter, she was 8. Or I'm sorry, my oldest daughter was 8, and my youngest daughter, she was only 2.
Okay, so
and it was a conversion for the whole family. Sorry, just so I'm
No, my wife was actually a member of the church in California, but she was totally inactive.
Gotcha. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys got here and it was very much more active lifestyle.
Oh yeah, it was funny because what really kind of started my change is about 3 months after we moved here. I'm 3 to 4 scotches in, and the what was his title? One of the young men's leaders comes up and knocks on the door, and he goes, I hear you're a firearms instructor.
This is going to go well.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, we're going to get along.
Yeah.
You know, I'm already.
Thanks for belittling me.
Yeah, sure, I'm a firearms
instructor. Sure. Yes.
So, I got a little heat on, so I'm like, yeah, what do you need? And he's like, well, I want to teach the young men how to shoot, but I want them to know reality. I'm like, I don't know if you want to know my reality, son.
Yeah.
How real do you
how real do you really want to get this to be? And he goes, I want it as real as you, the way that you teach it. I'm like, I teach cops and military, right? And he's like, yeah. He goes, that's what I want. I'm like, okay.
Dang, serious.
So he very, very serious about it. And he's one of my best friends now.
Yeah.
But he goes, we're going to have to talk to some parents because, you know where you live, right? And this isn't probably something that we just generally talk about. So we're going to need to talk to a couple of parents and everything. So maybe a month or so before we get this thing actually going. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. He goes, so we'll start on Friday. We'll do all the shooting and do some shooting on Friday. We'll do some shooting on Saturday, and then we'll come home Saturday night. I'm like, cool.
Sweet.
No problem. He goes, do you think we can drive down Thursday night? I'm like, sure. All right. Didn't think anything of it until 2 days before I went, oh, crap. That's Thursday night I can't drink. Friday I can't drink. Friday night I can't drink. Saturday I can't drink.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Saturday night.
Oh, trust me, I know that math.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, anybody that's been around it, they're like, ooh.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. And I'm like,
a couple days.
This could be, and literally I contemplated smuggling a fifth.
Yeah.
Just to freaking take the edge off,
Yeah.
Right.
And then I'm like, no.
Do this the right way.
Be better than that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my start of, okay, you need to be better. And then literally when we went, we had, 14 boys, shooting pistols, shooting rifles, listening to everything that I told him to do and doing it to the letter.
That's awesome.
And we get done. They're sitting there helping make dinner. They're cleaning up the kitchen. They're doing the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
They're prepping the next meal and everything else. And not once did I hear any of them arguing with each other.
That's awesome.
You know, and being a cop in San Jose, it's like you can't go 10 minutes without teenagers arguing with each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and just kind of is what it is. I'm like, holy smokes. Nothing. I'm like, okay, there's got to be something to this.
Yeah. That's when you started like opening your investigation again.
Yeah. Well, and then literally, JB, my buddy, he goes, "Why don't you come to church with us tomorrow?" I'm like,
couldn't just let it be a good weekend.
Yeah.
You had to throw that one on me.
and
Just let me go, man.
and so literally, I go, "Yeah, okay, I'll go to church." And I just figured it was just going to be an hour. I didn't understand that it was a 3-hour block. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's 3 hours of my day, and that's freaking cutting in my drinking time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday's the big drink day.
We got kickoff,
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
Why does God hate football season?
You know, so we're sitting there and I go through church and everything, and then he goes, "Well, we're going to our quorum meeting." I'm like, "What the hell is a quorum meeting?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, that's where we, our group gets together, and you go with those guys." I'm like, "Those guys are old farts. I'm going with you guys."
I like the young guys. They're fun.
I'm more of a young men's leader.
Yeah. Well, and it cracked me up because literally he goes to me, "Well, no, that's where you're supposed to go." And I go, "Those are my guys. I'm going with them." And he goes, "Well, you're supposed to do that." And I go, "What? Do you have something to hide?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, you might as well come with us then."
I was like, okay.
So I went with them, did their hour, then went to Sunday school, and missionaries started coming. The next thing you know, we're planning my baptism and everything else.
Good for you.
So,
So your kids were young, and when you got here, and were you part of the young men's when your son was that age too?
yeah, well, and here's the funny part. I didn't understand what it really was before I was even a member of the church. They said, "Hey, how would you like to be part of the young men's leadership group?" I'm like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
I'm not baptized.
Seems like not my kind of thing.
I didn't think it was that big a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Big deal.
But turns out it's a pretty
big deal.
pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And they made me part of the
That's
young
awesome.
men, the priests quorum and everything else. I'm like, I get to hang out with all these cool cool kids. My son gets to see them, have them as role models and mentors. I'm like, how is this bad?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I love teaching young men. They called me I teach the 16 to 18 year olds, and
Oh, that's such an awesome age.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun, man.
Yeah.
We joke around, and I'm like, I feel like I get along with them really well because I treat them very real, like adults. I don't treat them like 16 year olds. I'm like, you're an adult, man.
Yeah.
Like when I was 16 years old, I know exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
You're not fooling anybody.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not gonna treat you like, because you're not my son.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna treat you like I'm not saying that their parents are ignorant, but like I know exactly what you're doing, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend like I don't.
Exactly.
Okay. So I ask them all the time, "Hey, how's dating going? Which girl's the cutest one in the state?" You know, like
exactly.
I just talk to them.
Yeah.
And they love that. I get along with them.
And it's nice to have the background that we have. I mean, I'm not speaking for myself in the church or whatever, but I hear, friends or people that we know, they'll be like, "Yeah, my son's 16 and yeah, he's got a cute little girlfriend. He's like, sometimes he spends the night over at her house, but he sleeps on the couch." I'm like, "Yeah."
That's what he's telling you.
I'm like, "Yeah, I bet." And then they're like, no, you're getting the wrong impression. Her dad's a cop." I'm like, "So he's at work."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. Yeah.
Who you
If
convincing?
you call them on that, and I tell them, same thing. Like as a leader and teacher, like I tell them, it's inevitable that you're going to make mistakes. And
For sure.
me being ignorant to the fact that you're going to make mistakes is foolish. So
Yeah.
it's okay to make them. Just know that like, I'm not going to be mad at you. you're not going to be ostracized from the group.
Yeah,
like
right.
just come talk to me. If you need to talk to somebody and you don't know who to talk to, like we'll just chat about it.
Well, and that's so huge, especially at that age, because they don't have a lot. I know when I was that age, I didn't want to go talk to my dad about that kind of stuff. It's like, that's like taboo.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
But
Can't talk to the bishop. Like that's way too scary.
Yeah.
But Brother Taylor, who's kind of chill and like, makes fun of me for dating girls all the time.
Yeah.
I can go probably talk to him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. I don't know. I really enjoy it. I like leadership a lot. It's been fun for me.
Yeah, dude. Hands down, the best thing that I've ever done in the church was working with those boys, because literally we have relationships now where we still call each other up. Hey, how are you? What's going on? What's going on with your wife? Hey, I heard you're having a baby.
Yeah, they email me. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
they
it's like it's so awesome to see.
They're on missions now, and they'll like, I'm part of their group family emails. And
yeah,
like, hey, how's it going, brother? Yeah, it's good. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty much out of questions.
I don't got anything else. Other than I got to come out to some trainings or something.
Dude, you got to come out.
Dude, I mean, I've been saying this to, I've said this to everyone here in this room, but I was just so rifle focused in the military. I loved it. And I love going to Ready. I go to Ready Gunner once a week and pull out the rifle and shoot it, or rent one and shoot it. But my pistol skills are non-existent. For how long I was around firearms in the military and constantly how many hours I've dedicated to firearms training, I have done it solely with an M4 or an M16. I had an M16 for a while with like a little mild Leopold scope on it. I like that. But I've never done pistol manipulation. I can't shoot a pistol to save my life. I got to get out there with you guys and learn, because I've always had the tremors. So for me, I need a backstop. Yeah. To the point where I've honestly even thought about just doing whatchamacallit, like get a little like a pistol like a pistol rifle for home defense, because what am I going to do with a pistol? But yeah, anyways, I just I want to come do it. You got any good trainings coming up? Let the 5 people that listen to this know.
We've got so much stuff going on. I mean, I revamped the entire training program for Ready Gunner. We're actually going to be releasing it next month, or in the middle of next month, the entire program for everybody to go through. And literally, if they're to the point of they've never touched a gun, all the way to special operations, all the stuff that we used to do and everything. That's awesome. It's so cool to sit there and see that, and to see just that one little piece come to fruition. I mean, it's like you work on this project that's just your baby for months, and then the next thing you know, it's like, hey, there it is.
There it is. Let's let it go.
Yeah. Now let's let it go. So literally, we have everything. Like I said, if you've never touched a gun before, we can start you out on a simulator. Yep. And the best part about a simulator is there's no cost of ammo
and no danger.
Yeah, exactly. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to have a laser beam cross over me. Okay, cool. No big deal.
Good deal. Yeah.
Right.
And they're all eye safe, so it doesn't even matter.
Exactly.
So I met sidebar, and then we'll close out. But I met Todd because he owns another business with my father-in-law. Yeah. And I have to tell you this story about Matt, because I don't think I've told you it. But when Erica and I were dating, I don't think you guys had started BPMF yet, but Matt was really into guns, and I knew that. And I knew he was hanging out with you. Yeah. And I was like, I needed something to like find a common thing between us that I could kind of like hide the guys behind, so I could ask for Erica's hand in marriage. Yeah. And I was like, hey, I mean, and every father, I feel like, knows what's coming. No son-in-law is like, hey, do you want to hang out one-on-one? Yeah. You want to hang out for steps? But now I would, but back then I didn't know. Yeah. And I was like, hey, so I was thinking we could go shooting. And he was like, okay, sounds good. And so we're like, he picks me up in his truck, and we're driving to Ready Gunner, and we're like talking and stuff. And he's like, Trevor, I know what you're going to ask me tonight, and I just want you to know that if you do not hit the target a significant amount of times, I'm going to say no. And I was like, outstanding. I was like, lucky for you, I was in the military, so I think we're good. Yeah.
Man, that sounds difficult. I lucked out. My wife asked me to marry her. I just had to call her dad and be like, is it okay if your daughter marries me? I don't know. She was like, my dad will want permission. And I was like, but you asked me. Yeah. And so that was so funny. I just always remember that. I just called Trevor. I was like, I had to call him and be like, is it okay if your daughter asked me to marry her? Because she already did.
Yeah, Sarah actually asked Brooks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They were talking about not getting married for a long time. They were like, well,
why involve the state? That whole
attitude, you know? Yeah. And then he calls me. He goes to New Orleans, and like I figured eventually, like after many years of dating, they would eventually tie the knot, because they both were very against it. Then he calls me from New Orleans at like 7 a.m., dude. And he's like, Trevor. And I was like, what? And he's like, Sarah proposed to me last night. And I was like, what? I thought that was not even on the books.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyways. Well, dude, it was awesome having you on. That was an awesome conversation. I feel like I got a lot out of it.
Where can people follow you on social media and stuff?
The easiest one is Nielsen Training. on Instagram, Facebook, and then the website, nielsentraining.com or bpmfinc.com.
Cool.
Or just go to readygunner.com and you can see
everyone's
you can
stuff.
see everybody's
whole
stuff.
training schedule.
Yeah, the whole training schedule of everything that we do. Because literally there's days where I have to look, okay, oh, yeah, I guess I'm teaching tonight.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because we
enough.
do so much stuff there. So
That makes sense.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming
Awesome.
on, Todd.
Absolutely,
Appreciate having me, man.
Thanks,
Thanks
brother.
for having me.
Good to meet
Appreciate
you.
it.
That's all we got. Get out of our face.
Yes. Have a great day.